Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. I hope you're having a great day as we continue to celebrate so many amazing people across the state of Mississippi who are working in the trenches to make this place a better place to live, work, and play. And, when you think about a better place to live, work, and play, you can't help but think about safety. I mean, I don't care where you live. Let's put it that way. Everybody wants to be safe, man. You want yourself to be safe. You want your family to be safe, whether you're at home or on the road. It's just, if there is a statement we could say that we all share, no matter where we are in our lives, I think everybody wants to know they can go through their lives in this wonderful free country that we live in and just be safe. And that those who are law-abiding citizens, they can be shoulder to shoulder with us enjoying life. And those who aren't, they can be dealt with in the appropriate way. And, we're really pleased. I am very pleased, and you should be too, that in the state of Mississippi, we've got a commissioner of public safety in this state, and Sean Tindell, who is very focused on that. We've had many shows together. He's got a lot of responsibility. We'll remind you what those responsibilities are here in just a second. But I'm looking forward to spending the whole show with Sean today to get up to speed on what's going on in his world these days. Without any further ado, let me welcome Sean back to the Ricky Matthews Show. How you doing, Sean?
Doing good. Glad to be back here and glad to be on the show today.
Listen, let's start with this because in your private world, in your personal world, you had a knee replacement maybe a little over a year ago, and you just had the other knee done recently. And I've noticed you've shared your journey of rehabilitation back from that. But how are you doing?
I'm doing good. This one has gone significantly better than the one we did a year ago. I think my left knee was in worse shape than my right knee, and that's probably part of it. The other part is knowing what to expect this time. I think I was better prepared, and it's really why I try to post about it on social media, because I talk to a lot of folks that are considering it or looking at it, and I just kind of want to share my journey and experiences, and hopefully that will have an impact on people in the future that are looking at having it done, so that they have a positive journey with it. Because I talked to people before I had mine done and really got some great advice, some great input, and that's why I think it's important to share that with folks, so that if they're looking at this, they can take it all into consideration and try to prepare themselves for the journey of that knee replacement. It's a significant surgery. They literally saw your leg in half at the knee, take out the knee joint, put in a metal plate on your lower leg bone, and put in a metal plate on your femur, and then in between install a metal joint with a plastic piece in between. And so and then they just sew you back up together and say, good luck walking. So that takes a little bit of time to get used to. But in today's world, what used to be a 3 or 4 day stay at the hospital, they do the surgery at 8 a.m. and have you leaving at noon to head home. And it's up to you to do the work yourself and get better.
Well, in your case, as you and I were chatting about before we started the show, in the old days, they would do the surgery and you would wait a week or two or longer before you even started rehab. In your case, you're actually beginning to manipulate the knee joint the next day. I mean, yeah.
And if you don't, and you sit there and you're in pain and you don't move, that scar tissue is going to form around that knee, and then they'll have to do another surgery, put you to sleep, and force manipulate it just to bend it. So the fear of having to do another surgery motivated me a lot to get up when it was hurting, bend it when it was hurting it, straighten it when it was hurting it. And we started PT the next day. And I tell folks all the time, when you go meet with your doctor and you're looking at this, ask your doctor, what is my PT plan? And if your doctor's not interested in your PT plan, I'd go find another doctor, because it's that important. Because the surgeon's important, but what happens after the surgery, your mindset as a recovering patient, and then your physical therapist is also important. It's really a third on how successful this surgery is going to be. So,
hey, what's your cause of bad knees? Was it sports?
Probably a little bit of that. I played high school basketball, played baseball. I enjoyed sports through college and through my 20s and 30s. And I started having knee problems when I was about 30 years old. But I also remember my dad, who died in 1999, back when he was 30, wearing knee braces, back before they did knee replacements, having a lot of issues with his knees. And so I think most of it's genetic, and then just the wear and tear that I did on it in my younger life. But it is what it is. And then at least I'm thankful to have the opportunity to get this surgery so I can enjoy the next 20 to 25 years pain-free and having a more active life than I've had in the last 5 or 10.
Yeah, my dad had knee surgery. He was big time football. In fact, he was going to go play college ball. Really good football player. But he tore his ACL. Back in those days, man, that was the kiss of death for your football career. Big, gigantic scar he carried with him the rest of his life, and never was totally right again. I've been lucky, man. I have been really lucky. I guess it's probably I wasn't involved in high school sports, but I was always super active, playing flag football and baseball and softball and all those things. I just was very lucky. My two sons were both terribly unlucky. They both had, dislocated patellas in the one knee, and they both tore ACLs on the other knee. So Justin's doing great with his. He's running marathons with his, so he's good to go. He has to nurse it properly, but he's doing fine. Jordan, on the other hand, he'll probably have to have a knee replacement at some point because he's almost got bone to bone, and he's in his early 30s. So the story. So,
and that's it. You're kind of born with the cartilage that you have, and if your cartilage wears out and you end up bone on bone, you're probably going to have a knee replacement. I will say, I didn't have a lot of knee problems at all, really, until I'd gotten out of school. I was working. I was doing the 40 to 50-hour work week sitting at a desk. And then in the evenings, I'd go play tennis and try to do basketball and other sports that I'd always done. But I wasn't working out. I wasn't going to the gym. I wasn't keeping that leg strong in a way that I had done before. And that's when it really started to reveal itself, when you're sitting at a desk, you're not eating like you should, and then you're still trying to be that weekend warrior. And
yeah, I was talking to someone who's an orthopedic surgeon the other day and said, where the most, you think about high school sports and soccer and all this. They said, where the most number of injuries are coming from these days? I said, what? Pickleball. And it makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense. I'm talking about torn Achilles tendons and all kinds of really serious injuries.
Darn it, that was going to be my sport of the future. I was thinking pickleball was going to be my thing when I recovered from this.
I guess if you're in shape, great, go do it, man. But you got a lot of you say weekend warriors, but people who for a long time weren't active. But pickleball, for friends of mine who are involved in it, they love it. They love playing it, and it's a great social sport. For people who enjoy hanging out with other people, it's just a great social sport. It's not going anywhere, but I guess that means don't just use those extremities during pickleball, but find other ways to use them as well so that you can be ready to play pickleball. But yeah, a lot of older folks going out playing that and just wreaking havoc on their legs in one way or the other. It's interesting to me that's a problem these days. Hey, listen, Sean, let's do this. For people who have not heard us talk before, and I really, we'll zero in on the additional role that you guys have had in the city of Jackson and why that's important, et cetera. But why don't you give them a sense of what the Department of Public Safety is all about?
Well, it's a large agency. It's a historic agency in Mississippi. It was founded in 1938 along with the Mississippi Highway Safety Patrol. And since that time, it has also grown to include the Mississippi Bureau of Investigations, the Driver Services Bureau. We have the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics. We have the Mississippi Office of Homeland Security. We have the Office of Public Safety and Planning, which oversees millions and millions of dollars of federal grants that come into our state to improve public safety. We also have the Commercial Transportation Enforcement Division. We have Crime Stoppers. We have the Capitol Police that was recently added to the Department of Public Safety. And then we have the Mississippi Crime Lab, which also includes the Mississippi Medical Examiner's Office. So all in all, we have 11 very distinct divisions. And even within those divisions, we have other sub-agencies like the Criminal Information Center that collects all the criminal data in the state and does background checks for other state agencies. We have at Driver Services, we do our firearm permits division. So, you've got firearm permits, you got driver's license, and then you go over again to MBI, and they also house the sex offender registry. So we're responsible for keeping up with that. So there's a lot of different things going on in our agency. It's about 1,500 employees, 900 law enforcement officers, and it's it's an historic agency, one in which I'm honored to be at the helm of, but one which I feel like we've made a lot of great strides over the last 4 years in enhancing our public safety role, reaching out to the public, trying to be innovative in the ways that we improve our public safety in our state. And recently, U.S. News and World Reports came out with its state rankings in a variety of different fields. And I was really pleased to see that in Mississippi, we ranked number 17 in the nation when it came to public safety. And if you look at all the other categories, that was one of the highest in the country for Mississippi.
That's really good to hear. But you're never focused just on that ranking. That just shows you're doing well. You always want to do better, and there's all kinds of challenges across the board. Your officers these days have to be lawyers out in the field, and that's one of the biggest changes that has happened in your arena. Hey, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with the Commissioner for Public Safety in Mississippi, Sean Tindell. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Sean Tindell, who's the Commissioner of Public Safety, someone who I enjoy visiting with on this show and have for the last 4 years, just kind of getting an update on what's happening in this state and this really huge 1,500 employees. Think about that for a second. This huge agency in Mississippi that has so much responsibility. Hey, listen, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. It's been a quiet hurricane season. I've talked with a number of different guests about it. It's been super quiet. I'm glad to see it. You know, I'm a little bit of a tropical weather nerd. A lot of the experts say that it could be a mid-September to October, maybe even a November type of season. Maybe it'll be quiet the whole time, and I'll be happy to see that as well. But, even though it's been quiet, that doesn't mean that you and your team hasn't been thinking a lot about planning, because if we get hit in not just coastal Mississippi, because you think about, we think of it being a coastal event when you have a hurricane, but hurricanes can impact the entire state of Mississippi. You guys are constantly thinking about contingency plans related to big events like that, aren't you?
Absolutely. And we start working in the summer every year, working with our counterparts in Louisiana and Alabama on contraflow plans on our interstates. And we saw how important that was going back 19 years ago to Hurricane Katrina, when you're trying to evacuate large metropolitan areas, how important contraflow can be to getting everybody out. And so we start coordinating with our partners in those arenas. We start working with our response teams to make sure that if we have an event, we can pull troopers from all over the state and MBN agents and Capitol Police officers and everybody in our department to get down to the affected areas and assist, as well as even the smaller things, trying to make sure that we have a team that goes out and provides food and other services to local departments when these events occur. So we have a mobile cook trailer and a team that's responsible for food for our officers and others. And we start preparing for that in the early summer, so that if we do get one of these events, we can put everybody together and roll on out. And the reality is, it helps us throughout the year, because while we look at hurricane season in that 3 to 4 month period, starting in the summer, going into October, we also have, as we've seen, tornadoes, ice events, all these things that can occur in a state like Mississippi, where we have to be ready to move on a moment's notice and get our folks where they need to be to help those citizens when they've been impacted by these natural disasters. And so it really is a massive effort, and one in which the team here at DPS deserves a lot of credit for year over year working to be prepared for these moments, as they may come or they might not come. And that's probably the hardest thing, is you don't want to get back on your heels when you have a couple of good hurricane seasons and think, oh, we're good, because you've been in this business long enough. That's when you actually start getting on your toes, because you know it's about to come.
Listen, when I think about this organization, again, so diverse, so many different responsibilities, all these departments and department heads have to work not only within each other, but also with stakeholders that exist all across the state of Mississippi on so many different, dimensions. There's a lot to do. But you had 1,500 employees. When I retired, I had 2,000 employees. I can appreciate what it looks like to have leaders that you can rely on to be able to get the job done, and that understand the importance of collaborating. And one thing you and I haven't talked about, we'll come back to this in a second, but the technology and innovation that has to occur on an ongoing basis, capital expenditures to keep up with what's happening. We'll come back to that in a second. But each of your department heads have a lot to say grace over. And one of the most important things that they do, besides build a strong team, is to, not just in the case of hurricanes and tornadoes, but just the ongoing collaboration that has to occur with stakeholders and their area of responsibility. That's massive, isn't it?
It is. And even a state like Mississippi that's relatively small compared to our neighbors and compared to other states, we have a lot of other state agencies that we have to coordinate with, whether it's MDOT, whether it's the Department of Health. And so we're always working together with other agencies because we cross over. One of our big emphasis at MBN lately has been trying to make sure that when we encounter folks that have mental health crisis or mental health issues, and yes, they might be using narcotics, but that we also work to address those mental health issues. And so we're coordinating with the Department of Mental Health on that. MDOT, hurricane season, we're coordinating with them on the contraflow programs and different things that we can do for highway safety. And, just this past Labor Day weekend, it was one of the most deadliest weekends that we've had on our Mississippi roadways. We had a high number of fatalities with the bus crash on I-20. And so, we're coordinating with other agencies, the Department of Education. One of the most significant pieces of legislation that I feel like has been passed from a public safety perspective since I've been here is bringing mandatory driver's education. So we're working with the Department of Education to make sure that gets implemented by 2026. We routinely lead the nation in teenage fatalities in this state, and it's been that way for 20 years. Trying to educate our drivers on how to be better drivers, I think is critical to improving safety so that we can lower those numbers. But we can't do it by ourselves. We can't just police and we can't just write speeding tickets. We need to work with the Department of Education to educate and create better drivers on our roadways so that we can lower those numbers. We need to work with the Department of Mental Health so that we can lower drug use in our state and try to get these families back on track. And we need to work with the Department of Transportation as we're trying to improve safety on our interstates and highways to make sure that they're done in a way that's safe for folks to travel, not just from an enforcement standpoint, but just from a pure operating your motor vehicle on a safe roadway standpoint.
Sean, I was thinking about that bus crash, and as a former paramedic early in my life, I worked as a paramedic and then was in pre-med and was going to be an emergency room physician, but I had the opportunity to work more than once a mass casualty event that involved some type of crash, on the highway. And I saw the note from the mayor of Vicksburg, really touching note about, really sharing empathy for the families that were impacted by that bus crash right outside the city of Vicksburg. But man, I don't care how many times you work an event like that. It's not easy. It's not easy on anyone who's involved. But for people who may not have realized what happened, remind them what that was all about.
Well, there was a bus headed westbound on I-20, about to reach Vicksburg, and apparently it had a tire that blew out. It caused the bus to wreck and then fall over, actually involving another vehicle as well. So there was a mass casualty event with the ensuing fire and people that were trapped. And so it just really extremely tragic, especially when you look at the ages of some of the victims in that particular incident. And again, we had an incident in North Mississippi where a young individual on a four-wheeler pulled out onto a highway. That person died as well as a passenger in the vehicle. We had another incident where an 18-year-old it was a senior at Madison Ridgeland Academy, was crossing over and got into a wreck trying to overtake another vehicle, hit it head on. I mean, it's just it was a really rough weekend, and for the officers that have to respond to those events and then talk to families, there is a bit of PTSD that for all those, the EMTs, the police officers, the troopers that show up and have to deal with that. And again, another focus at our agency and Major Johnny Polis has been great leading this. We've tried to work on the peer support systems in our throughout our agency, and we're trying to offer that to other agencies now as a way to improving our responses to those incidents for first responders as they deal with the trauma that they do see.
Yeah, the PTSD, I experienced that pretty significantly, actually. Yeah, in some ways I still do, because I tell you how it manifests itself. one of my grandkids will do something, and I will, and this inevitably happens, and I'll say, "Oh gosh, they shouldn't be doing that," and members of my family will go, "Dad, quit being so protective. They got to learn." But then I say, I always answer the same way. If you had seen what I have seen, you would be the same as I am. you would be trying to. Oh gosh, I don't want that to happen. I've just seen it all, man. And it scars you. That's just, you talked about the fire. I remember so well on the Louisiana line once. I went to a fire, young people in the car. God, you never forget situations like that. I've seen so many tough situations, but that's one of the reasons you talk about passing and the head-on collision. And one of the things I remember most about paramedic school is they made us go to defensive driving school. That's part of the training. And I never will forget this. And it drove it into my head. And I guess I've carried this with me the rest of my life, but this notion of always driving defensively. And if people have not been through it or your kids have not been through it, I would urge you to go through it, because it helps you understand that you should always be in the mode of defensive driving. You should assume that something bad is going to happen, and this is how you avoid it, so that you don't take anything for granted. And then you add to that the fact that some people don't have that training and do take unnecessary risk with the whole issue of distracted driving on top of it. And man, the roadways are dangerous, man. And in fact, I'll give you a chance to respond to that when we get on the other side as we continue our conversation with Sean Tindell, the Commissioner of Public Safety in Mississippi. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. I have Sean Tindell with us. He's the Commissioner of Department of Public Safety in Mississippi, and someone I really enjoy spending time with. But, Sean, I was telling you during the break, and I'll give you a chance to respond about this whole notion of distracted driving and the need for defensive driving training and all that. I mentioned to you that I spent a lot of time in the Mississippi Delta. They're listening to this show as we speak, and a lot of two-lane highways around this state of Mississippi. And we're just not focused enough on staying safe the way we could. And you get reminders, and when you do what you do in your work, you get reminded almost every day about how we should be more careful and how we should be more focused on eliminating distracted driving. But I can't emphasize that enough, can I? No, I mean, and it's something, again, the legislation that we passed, and I want to thank Senator Dennis DeBar for his efforts in getting this legislation passed too, because the number of teenagers that we lose year over year because of distracted driving, because of poor driving techniques, it's astounding. And if people totaled up those numbers, and we've spent a lot of time the last several years focusing on school safety, and that's important that we have school resource officers and we're prepared for responses if there's an active shooter. But we lose far more students to bad driving habits than we do active shooter situations in this state. And so, but we just don't have that outcry. We don't have that outcry that something needs to be done. And so I was really proud that we got this legislation passed, because, taking that time over a semester in school, putting them in a car with an instructor, having simulators that help teach defensive techniques and really emphasizing that, I firmly believe it's going to save a lot of lives. And it's one of those things that you're never even going to know whose life you saved, but you're going to be able to look at the numbers statistically and see the number of teenage fatalities go down in our state. And we'll know that it's had a tremendous positive impact on the future of our state and making it safer. And so, distracted driving is a big thing for these teenagers, big thing for everybody. I mean, I don't know anybody who's not guilty of looking at their cell phone while they're driving. And that includes me, and I got to do better, and I have to remind myself of that all the time. So it's something we need to emphasize and continue to work on. Defensive driving techniques, unfortunately, a lot of times it takes being in an accident to realize what that means. So again, if we can educate them more on that in the school setting and with an instructor, so that maybe they don't have to get into an accident before they understand the importance of defensive driving, that's really good. And I think it's a major step in the right direction. And every one of us knows a teenager that's been involved in a fatal crash, somebody close to us, a friend, and it is just so tragic. And the sad reality is,
most of the time those accidents could have been avoided.
It could have been avoided. Training and focus, and parents not taking anything for granted with their kids. And yeah, be hyper focused. There's nothing wrong with that. Just don't turn them loose. Make sure they got the right training. And as it relates to distracted driving, do your research on it. The statistics around that are so alarming. It's just crazy. It's crazy. Speaking of, gosh, I think I can think of so many things that are like that. You think, we don't focus on it enough. You think about the number of deaths from fentanyl and other drug issues. And I don't even know how to have a conversation about this these days without it sounding political. And I'm not political when I talk about it. But how can we gaslight America when we're talking about the borders of our country? And I just don't know why that's so hard to get our heads around, that we can't have porous borders. For a lot of reasons, we can't have porous borders. But as it relates to the amount of drugs that are coming through into our country, and when you add to that the amount of fentanyl that's hitting the streets of America, and that our kids are taking a pill that they have no idea what's in it, it's heartbreaking, Sean. I just don't know why we can't get focused on it.
And I think the good news is, to some degree, and we've been in a major education effort since 2020 when we started seeing those overdose death numbers tick up in our state. MBN has gone into schools, and we've started talking more and more to these young people about the dangers of fentanyl and taking drugs that you don't know where they're coming from, you don't know what they're laced with, and you just need to stay away from it. And hopefully that's made an impact and why we're seeing some of those numbers go down. But the reality is that it's just more and more and more coming across our borders and into our country. And I believe, and not to be political with it, but countries have different cycles in their lifespan. And when America was brand new and it was a new country, and we needed more people coming into this country to fill it and make it better and grow it. But as you become more mature as a country, at some point you got to take care of the citizens that are here. And I think we've reached that point where there's enough people here that don't have jobs that need to be working. There's enough needs that we have that we need to take care of our own before we just allow folks to come in undocumented and put greater burdens on our system. And I believe in the American dream. I think it ought to be a place where we invite those that want to accept American culture and who we are, and then the melting pot that we are, to come on in. But we want you to add value to this country, not just come here because you want to be here. So I think it's time that we tighten up our borders and look at who's coming in and invite those that want to be a positive addition to what America is.
Yeah, what's interesting is that too often the conversation, for all the reasons that we're talking about here, this whole notion of an open border, is that if you want to close the border, then you're anti-immigration, which is not the case at all, in fact. I mean, most people say we need immigration. I mean, most of us are descendants of immigrants, but we need legal immigration. We need more orderly legal immigration, and just accepting the fact that we're going to have so many undocumented folks coming across. We don't know where the hell they came from. Okay, and let's say 90% are good people. That's great. But what about the other 10%? And I'm afraid, we're seeing it every day. You're seeing it every day where there's some issues related to some undocumented immigrant. They try to say that crime's not related to that, but we wouldn't have the crime if they weren't here. So you can't compare it to, average crime in America. It seems silly to think of it that way. But at the end of the day, I'm just curious, how often do you find yourself in a situation where you're saying, gosh, an undocumented immigrant again in the state of Mississippi?
Look, it happens. And it's the sad part about it, again, is if they were documented and they were coming through and we cut off that border, you could avoid that crime. But I still think the overwhelming majority of crimes that we have in this state are committed by people that were born and raised here. And so, and the sad part to me, and again, something that trying to coordinate with other agencies and work with, CPS, Child Protection Services, and Department of Human Services. And we had an incident on the coast last weekend where a 14-year-old shot a 16-year-old. And it just happens all too often that we're seeing young people involved with guns and shooting each other, and how they approach conflict resolutions. Now it's you insulted me, so now I got to shoot you. Whereas 20, 30 years ago, and even 60 years ago when you were a teenager, Ricky, that you used to go outside and you'd have a fight. But nowadays it's really dangerous out there, and there's so many multifaceted problems that we've got to look at. And yes, immigration's one. Those undocumented workers cause a lot of problems. But every time that we're having to focus energy and effort on undocumented folks that are committing these crimes, we could be trying to put other resources towards advancement programs for young individuals so that they don't go down this life of crime, and try to have better programs for them so that they don't feel like they have to fall into a drug and gun and gang lifestyle when they're 12 and 13 years old.
Yeah, I said this to you before, and we've chatted about it, but it's worthy of mentioning now. In my time in New Orleans as the publisher and president of NOLA Media Group in the Times-Picayune, I had the opportunity to work closely with the mayor of New Orleans. And he said the thing that shocked him the most over the time that he had been mayor has been how young the folks involved in crime really were. And I mean, they got younger and younger. And if there's such thing as the weapons they use being more destructive, that was true too. And that it wasn't like the Crips and the Bloods of the old days, but neighborhood-based stuff and super violent. And when he talked to these young people, because he spent a lot of time talking, they bring some of these young leaders together into the room and try to talk to him about what's going on. He said the thing that was most unique about all of them was that they didn't expect to live till tomorrow. They didn't have hope. And so they were making decisions based on that. And again, this is one of those other things that's kind of out of sight, out of mind. This is one of the reasons why legislation was needed to protect the capital city, for a matter of fact. And you guys got involved in working with the city of Jackson to address that. But it's a problem that it's societal, it's cultural, there's a lot involved in this, but it's still a major problem that we need to focus our attention on, isn't it?
We really do. And it's not going to get better until we get down to the root of the problems. And again, it's not something we're going to police our way out of. We got to work with our community-led organizations that try to reach these young people, that try to reach families, and show that there's a different pathway for life. And look, this isn't anything new. The reality is, if you go back in history and you look at impoverished areas where young people fell destitute, that's where a lot of your criminal activity came out of. And so
it is, and we shouldn't ignore it. They're just as important as everybody. Everybody should feel hope. Hope is one of the most powerful words in the world. Hey, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Sean Tindell. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. I have Sean Tindell, who's the Commissioner of Public Safety here in Mississippi. We were chatting during the break about how crime on the coast may not necessarily be on the radar screens for someone in Jackson or Tupelo and vice versa. I really want to encourage you to sign up. Go to the SuperTalk.fm app, or you go to SuperTalk.fm on your phone, or you can go download the SuperTalk Mississippi app and look at the news stories that we have. One of the great things, Sean, about what SuperTalk Mississippi News is doing is it goes to nearly 50 radio stations across the state of Mississippi, the 26 that are owned by SuperTalk Mississippi Media, and then other radio stations that are part of that network. And they are in small communities and communities all across the state of Mississippi, so that news tips are coming into sort of the central news desk on a regular basis. So the big news is happening across the state. We've got it. And it's a unique spot. It's a unique thing that we're doing at SuperTalk Mississippi News. But yeah, it's happening, and you're in a position where you can see sort of the consistency of that, and you see, based on where you're sitting, not only hearing the anecdotal situations, but you also see the data. And we've always got work to do, don't we?
We do. And look, I would love to say there's going to be one day where we don't have any crime and we don't have any fatalities on our roadways, but we all know that's never going to happen. But I do think we can do a lot better. And I think, it's easy to look at our certain situations, whether you live on the coast or you live in Jackson and you live in Columbus, and say, oh, it's just a problem here. I want folks to understand, no, it's not just one community's problem. This is a problem in our whole state and really our whole country. And we've got to put our collective minds together and really think of ways to try to help the situation. And again, I go back to the youth crime. I was a former prosecutor down there on the coast for many years. Had the opportunity to work at the youth court for about a year when we had our youth court prosecutor that was out for health reasons. And, back then, 20 years ago, we had over 400 bed spaces at statewide detention facilities for juvenile delinquents. We have about 40 right now across the whole state. So these juvenile delinquents are either being caught and released and put back out on the streets, or they're being put into the adult system, which isn't good either, because then they end up just bonding out and then they're back out on the streets until they commit another major crime. So I think we got to look at what we're doing and really address youth crime, address the situation that these juvenile offenders are facing. And again, it's not just a Jackson problem. We got to look at it from the coast. We got to look at it to Jackson. We got to look at it Tupelo and DeSoto County, because it's happening everywhere. And I applaud those that are community-led organizations, volunteer organizations, Boys and Girls Club. I know that's really big on the coast. They do such an amazing work. The District Attorney Crosby Parker down there has been really big in that, as well as others. That's how we change this. That's how we turn the narrative, is getting with those young people and helping turn their lives around and showing them a pathway for a brighter future.
Yeah, there are a lot of challenges. Hey, listen, we had a challenge in the city of Jackson and what we call sort of the capital district. Some adjustments were made into that. A new approach was taken to that. I know there are challenges related to it, but the outcomes have been better than they were before putting all that in place. And now you're responsible for all that. But give us an update on how that's going.
Well, the CCID, which is the Capital Improvement District, was created about 10 years ago. Capitol Police has been around a little bit longer, but it was primarily a security agency. The decision was made in around 2020 that they wanted Capitol Police to be a full police force and help with policing within the capital city and help with the city of Jackson. And so since that time, we've grown from about 60 or 70 officers to over 150. Our plans to get to about 220. The CCID itself has expanded. We have launched Operation Unified, working with the city of Jackson, the Hinds County Sheriff's Office, our federal law enforcement partners at the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office on trying to get illegal guns off the street and drugs off the street. And we've really taken an approach that we're not just doing this by ourselves. We're working with our local law enforcement partners. We're working with our federal partners. And we're doing all this to help improve the capital city, because the reality is, and one of the things that makes Jackson's unique is, yes, the people that live here, they are citizens of the city of Jackson. But it's our capital city. And if you live on the coast and you have to come here to go to court at the Court of Appeals or Supreme Court, it's going to bring you here. If you're showing up at your capital and you're from Tupelo, you have a right to come here and demonstrate or talk to your legislators. You need to be able to come to this capital city and feel safe. We have our state museums, the Civil Rights Museum, the Mississippi History Museum. There's all kinds of things that bring folks to the capital city, and it's your capital city. And you need to feel like you can be safe when you come here. And those efforts have been really fruitful in trying to reduce crime in the capital city. And it's been a really great success, something I'm proud of. I keep telling them, look, now, if you keep expanding the CCID, at some point we want it down in Gulfport too. We need to expand it to probably Tupelo and DeSoto County as well. I joke a little bit about it because it has been that much of a success. But I got to give credit to Chief Lucky and his team and what they've been able to do. Working with our local partners and trying to engage the public. And one of the things that we really fell short of in the beginning was thinking of it more as a state law enforcement agency. And we had to really get down to our roots and start having town hall meetings and remember that if it's going to be a police agency, it's got to be a little bit more of that local input and make sure they knew who they needed to talk to.
Well, it's been great watching it, and for anyone who thinks that police presence on the street doesn't make a difference, you need to study what they're doing in the capital city. It was necessary, and we as Mississippians can visit the state capitol feeling a little bit safer as a result of these efforts. That's just the reality of it all. Hey, Sean, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, my friend.
Always good to be here, and thank you for the opportunity, Rick. Appreciate it.
And good luck to your rehab on your knees. Hope you bounce back quicker than last time. This has been Sean Tindell, the Commissioner of Public Safety for the state of Mississippi. Listen, have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you, bye.